Hello, everyone. Today we have with us Harshvi Shah. She's a research analyst at IPSOS. She has expertise in healthcare market research and consulting. She graduated from Imperial College London with her bachelor's degree, and then she pursued her master's at Cornell University. She's passionate about helping others navigate graduate school, internships, and career planning. Welcome Harshvi to our show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for that introduction also. Uh, yeah, I think that covers most of my background. I just want to add that I grew up in Belgium for 17 years. And then I moved to London for my undergrad, and then I moved to New York for my master's at Cornell University, and my master's was in health informatics. And now, for the past 6 months, I've been working at IPSOS, which is a market research company, and I've been working specifically in the healthcare sector.
So, how was your experience at Cornell, and how did you navigate through your career into healthcare?
In high school, I was always passionate about biology and chemistry. I always knew I wanted to do something in the sciences. I was growing up, I was just exposed to different healthcare systems, and I really wanted to make an impact to patients and improving the lives of patients. And that's something I'd always been passionate about from a young age. And so that led me to me doing my undergraduate in biomedical sciences at Imperial College London. And then during my final year of college, of my undergrad college, I there was a lot of AI advancements going on in the healthcare industry that I kept reading about. There were so many new research articles coming out about like AI advancements in the healthcare industry. I also interned at the UK Dementia Research and Health Institute, which is the UK's National Dementia Research Institute, where I was working on really cutting edge technology for Parkinson's and dementia patients. And so that initially sparked my interest in artificial intelligence in healthcare. I was like, okay, so either after college, either I go and work a job or either I continue studying and doing my master's degree. And just because I was so passionate about learning more about AI in healthcare and how AI can be used to improve patients' lives, I made the decision to continue studying. And so that's what led me to pursuing my master's in health informatics. And I'm aware that health informatics may not be like a super familiar term that everyone knows about. So just to break it down, health informatics is basically a little bit about like AI in healthcare, and then there's bioinformatics, and then there's also just learning about how data is used in the healthcare system in the US, and also just understanding how the healthcare system in the US works. And so this health informatics was the perfect intersection of what I wanted to study. And so I'm really grateful that I got this opportunity to do this at Cornell with really great professors. And one thing I really liked about my experience at Cornell was that the professor to student ratio was so small. I really liked how much interaction I got with the professors and how much support we had from everyone at Cornell in terms of our job search. And I feel like I had a resource for every aspect of the job search, and I needed a lot of guidance, and I had a bunch of questions, and I think they were super helpful with that as well. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I really want to know about, you said you worked in, like how the advancement of AI in in dementia, and like could you elaborate on that? Like it's like a really interesting topic.
So, like exactly like you said, it's such an interesting topic. I didn't know much about it when I first had this internship. Imperial helped me get this internship at the UK's National Dementia Research Institute. And I was really lucky because I got to work with really great people and also much older people than me. I was the youngest person on the team. I was working with PhDs and postdocs. We were a team of 6 to 7 people, and our supervisor was very interested in how we can use technology to improve specifically dementia and Parkinson's patients' lives. And so currently the way patient diagnosis works, there's not really like a early stage diagnosis system set up for Parkinson's and dementia patients. And so we were looking at RGBD cameras, which is depth cameras, and we were looking at wearable sensors and motion sensors like smartwatches and depth cameras, and we were looking at whether they could be potential biomarkers of diagnosis in Parkinson's and dementia patients. And so working on like cutting edge technology like this, being part of a research team that no one else has ever done before was something that was truly so exciting, sparked my interest in it. And although our findings were super preliminary, it was obviously not conclusive because we had a small sample size. It was a super small team. I think the findings were so promising as well. And I think that they're still working on this research and they've expanded this research. We've got more patients that we're working with, and we do have a lot more insights in how we can use depth cameras and motion sensors and wearable devices to potentially for it to be biomarkers in such neurodegenerative diseases.
That's amazing. And I have like a counter question. Like, like recently we have seen like there has been a lot of advancement in the field of biomedical engineering as well. And recently in an interview, the CEO of NVIDIA, he said, the future, is digital biology. He encouraged a lot of students, and researchers, to go, to take up a career in the field of biology and to merge it with tech, like for students who have who don't have much knowledge about this field, what would you suggest, what skills should they learn, and what are the career options they have related to this field?
I think that's so interesting that he said that. I was actually not aware of that. I think that's so interesting that he said that because I fully agree with it. I think but the intersection of biology and technology, like specifically healthcare tech, is so interesting, and there are just so many advancements going on with it right now in terms of obviously the healthcare tech industry is super big, but if you look at it specifically for different areas, like different diseases, for example, or different like for example, some can be fitness trackers or some can be wearable sensors or some can be like cameras, like we spoke about before. There are just so many um different advancements going on for different diseases, and I think that's why it's so exciting. There's so many promising findings and research going on out there as well. So for someone that doesn't know much about biology tech or healthcare tech, I think I would summarize it by saying it's basically an industry where you can use technology, or in this case, artificial intelligence, to really either improve patients' lives or make doctors' lives easier. And so, in terms of improving patients' lives, that could mean maybe earlier diagnosis of diseases, or maybe that could mean better management, better care management for patients, or maybe that could mean like even finding a treatment. Like I read an article yesterday that was talking about how AI can be used in drug development, how we can like speed up the process of actually finding what drug would work in the initial stages of drug development because um it's a really long timeline to actually approve a drug, especially in the US. And so I think that takes about 10 to 12 years, or I think the range is 7 to 12 years. And so how we can use AI to narrow down that timeline or to speed up that timeline, because obviously some diseases are so time sensitive and it would be really useful to have a drug that maybe it's a preventative drug, or maybe even a drug that cures the disease. And so I think being in the biology and tech intersection is such an interesting field to be in right now because whatever you're interested in, like whatever disease you're interested in, or whatever part of the healthcare system that you want to improve. For example, you can also look at like the physician side of things. For example, in the US, physicians spend so much time typing up typing up data into patient records. Like we have electronic healthcare records in the US, and even after doctors spend so many hours treating patients and caring for patients, they still have to go back home or in the clinic and they still have to type up all of this data into EHRs. So you can only imagine how time consuming and burdening that is for doctors, especially after such long and tedious work days. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, there's so much that can be done to improve physicians' lives as well. And if you're working in the healthcare tech industry, for example, when I was at Cornell, we really got a lot of guidance and ideas from professors talking about parts of the healthcare system that can be improved in the US because it's so complex and there's so many different stakeholders at play, for example, insurance, payers, providers, patients. Um, and so, yeah, honestly, it's like whatever you're interested in, there's definitely like a space for you to create your own niche and use technology to improve either patients' lives or physicians' lives, or maybe even other care management in hospitals.
I've seen like even I have worked on like many projects in the field of assistive technology. So like like I made like some hardware products for the disabled. Like mainly I was working like with visually impaired people. So we were making like a device for them. It was like a smart wearable which they can use in their daily lives. It's like while I was doing the research, I found like the industry still is growing and is still in a stage where like it has a lot of potential, like the assistive technology industry. But like I've seen, like I spoke to a lot of people and researchers who are working on assistive tech. So like and like but they are saying that like it's like some people, like I've seen, like there are like some young generation people like who like they are not like still they are not into the industry because it's like still taking time, right? Because it's not the next, it's not like a cool
Yeah.
iPhone which you are building, or like it's like a smart phone which everyone is working for. So like how do you think like the people who are working in the field of assistive technology, how do you think that they can rebrand their product so that it appeals to a more wider audience? So that
Mhm.
so it makes it appealing, so that more and more people get into this industry, and they can work for the disabled, and like those who are in need of this technology.
Yeah. So do you mean more appealing in terms of like attracting people to join the industry or more appealing to patients for them to use the technology?
I would say both. If you, it would be great if you can answer both.
Firstly, when we're talking about patients actually using this technology, I know some patients are apprehensive to it, because obviously it's such a big and new change that's happening in the industry. So I think the main thing to do is just inform them of every single like feature of the technology, informing them of not only the positive aspects, but also potentially um affirming them that there's no like privacy breaches or nothing of that, like there's no recording of some sort, because obviously if we think about older patients, as a younger population, we're so much more familiar with technology and how it works and like the good parts, the bad parts, versus older patients may be more apprehensive towards actually using this technology, especially if it's for their disease, because some parts of it they like to keep private, and some patients don't actually even want to share some data with their families or their caregivers. And so I think really just informing them and being aware of the fact that they might not be comfortable sharing so much with families and caregivers, and so really addressing their concerns because every patient has could have a different concern. And so I think it's a matter of actually like sitting down with them and talking to them and understanding their concerns, and then potentially making them use the technology by specifically answering those concerns and reaffirming them that those concerns are valid and this is what we're doing to address those concerns in terms of the technology. And then I think secondly, how to get more people to actually join the industry. I would say there's definitely so much excitement going on right now with healthcare tech. I think almost every day I'm reading the news and there's like a new article about this product is being released or um AI helped this drug in terms of like drug development, or this device is helping Parkinson's patients for earlier diagnosis. So I think there's so much going on that I feel like people are reading more and more about it. I think the more people talk about it, the more people like maybe post about it on LinkedIn or like the research that they're doing. If you're part of a research team and like if you're posting about the research that you're doing or if a new drug has been approved, I think that's a main factor that I would see young people more attracted to the industry. Yeah, I would say definitely like posting on LinkedIn and like just getting the word out there would attract a younger audience. Especially in terms of students if they're looking to join, like if they're figuring out what industry they would like to join.
Like that's great. Thank you so much for those answers. And like let's get into like I have some questions from our audience which they want to ask you. So like I'll be going through most of them. Sorry if I couldn't answer any, some of the questions. But like the first one would be yes, like many of them are up, like many of us are applying for internships, like and other jobs in the US. So, like, what do you think is the best way to understand the expectations and responsibilities of a role when you're applying?
I think firstly, as simple as it sounds, go through the job description on the website or wherever you saw it, whether it was Handshake or LinkedIn or Google Jobs. The company lists out their expectations of the job on the page itself, like in the job description itself. For example, if they're looking at you being specific, like really familiar with a coding language, you should have all of that information there. And I think if you're confused about something or if you would need more clarification on something, the best thing I would advise is definitely to talk to people that are working at this company and then ask them about what their day to day is like, what their responsibilities are. And that will in itself shed so much insight into any concerns that you have. For example, if they're telling you that they're spending 80% of their time analyzing data or looking at data, and you are concerned about, like, for example, the fact that how much time will you actually spend looking at data, that will just answer your question. And yeah, I would definitely say speaking to people at the company will just make it so much more clear to you also if you would be a good fit for this job. Yeah, so to summarize, I would say just thoroughly look at the job description that you have in front of you. And then if you're confused about anything, then speak to people at the company and ask them what their responsibilities are.
And I would also like since you're an influencer, your channel Hired Over Coffee, it's around like more than 10,000 subscribers, right? So like I just
Yeah.
wanted to know like what are the common mistakes which you have seen people make when when people they are applying for jobs, and how can they be avoided?
For sure. And this is also me speaking from personal experience. So the things that I'm going to list right now is definitely things that I have done as well, and I've also been part of. Firstly, I would say I've seen a lot of people, including myself initially, just apply to jobs online and not doing anything after that, or like a couple of days later being like, oh, why did I not hear back from that job? If the only thing you're doing is applying for the job and that's it, and just submitting your resume and cover letter online, the chances that you're going to hear back are so low. Because in this job market, I would say the main thing is networking, especially if you're applying to like super competitive industries. Imagine there are 1,000 applicants for a job and you're the hiring manager. How are you like expected to go through 1,000 applicants and then remember each applicant properly and then shortlist them? Like, I think a much more smart way of doing the whole job search is talking to more people at the company and then really just finding common ground with them. Um, Obviously, talking about yourself as well and why you would be a good fit for the role is something that's quite helpful. Um, and then eventually, obviously, asking for referral to the job that you applied for. I would also say that when you're reaching out to people, definitely look within your school alumni first, because then they're probably more open to referring you if you come from the same school. Like a couple of days ago, someone asked me for referral and she actually went to Cornell. So I took like one glance at her resume and I was like, okay, I know she's a good fit. Like we went to the same school. I'm much more open to referring her because I know that she would be a good fit for this role. And so yeah, I think definitely reaching out to more people in your school um, alumni first. Another mistake that I think I see people doing and that I've done also is not researching the company well enough. And instead of focusing on generic interview questions like tell me about yourself and like why you're a good fit, actually go on the company website and look at the projects that they've worked on, or look at maybe there's like some testimonials that their clients have given about them, or maybe they have a whole list of projects that they've worked on, and then you can actually look into those projects and see if that's something that interests you. Or maybe if you've done something that aligns closely to that project, so you can actually speak about that in your interviews. Most companies also have their values listed out in their website. And so in one of my interviews, I got asked like what company value do you align with the most and why? And if I hadn't researched the company values properly, I would have no idea what to say because I would have just listed like a random value that may not even be their company value. So yeah, I think those are the top three mistakes that I feel like I have made also in the past, but I also see other people making.
That's thank you so much. And I think like another question which we have, which is like a pretty common question. I feel like when suppose someone wants to go into healthcare, right? So like how can applicants show their experience effectively, whatever experience they have in healthcare, uh, if they lack direct experience in that field. Suppose I want to join healthcare, but maybe I have done some healthcare projects, but I haven't done as many internships in that field. So if I'm
Right.
going into that field, so the recruiter will, how should I highlight my projects and whatever I have to the recruiter so that I have a higher chance of getting a call from them.
Yeah. And I think that's such a valid question. And I think that's such a fair question because so many people are actually looking to pivot into industries that they don't have any prior experience in. I think one really useful tip that I learned from someone else is actually so many skills that you learn in your job that you don't realize is so transferable. For example, if there's someone looking to pivot from, let's say, a software engineering role to like a consulting role, there's so much that can be used as transferable skills that would be so beneficial in the consulting world. So in the consulting world. So I think in your resume, just highlighting all the skills and all the projects that you've worked on that can be tweaked to really align with the job requirements of the job that you're applying for is so helpful. Like you don't necessarily have to have prior experience to join healthcare. I think it's more about like, are you capable of working on complex projects, for example, or multifaceted projects that have different stakeholders, um, and how you deal with problems and how you deal with issues? I think they're more interested in that. And if you can prove that you've worked on such complex projects and that you have really good data analysis capabilities, for example, and if you highlight that in your resume, I think you would be in a pretty good spot to actually join an industry that you may not have prior experience in.
And I think like this is the most popular question. And even I have this question: how do you handle rejections and stay
Yeah.
motivated during your job search?
That's so fair. I think just generally, like in life, anything that you do, I think you're gonna get a lot of rejections, no matter what that is. Like even if you're applying for colleges, unless you're like 1% of the world and you're just a genius, everyone, like 99% of the world goes through rejections. And I think everyone goes through rejections at in any aspect of your life. And I think job searching is just one of them. I applied to over 100 jobs and I got rejected from so many. And definitely it was hard to stay motivated and keep applying. But I think in this job market, you have to learn that it's maybe not so much a numbers game, it's more of a networking game, I would say. I would say rather than just making the same mistake that I did, rather than just applying to 100 jobs, I would say focus on each job in really thorough detail. Like make sure that you're talking to people at the company, make sure that you're asking for referrals, make sure that you're coffee chatting, make sure you're researching the company and tailoring your resume towards that job description instead of just putting in like your 50% and applying to 10 jobs a day, for example. You'd rather just apply to 2 jobs a day and make sure that those applications are really good and you've reached out to people, you have like coffee chat set up with them. I heard this from another person, and I think this also just gave me a lot of motivation throughout, is that it only takes one one yes to get a job. And so when you're getting rejected a lot from your job search, which I also was, I think just having that insight of that, oh yeah, it only takes one yes to actually get a job, I think that was something that was quite helpful as well. And then I'm sure if you're using the right networking techniques, if you're actually talking to people, getting referred, interviewing, I'm sure that something will work out for you.
So like apart from applying to the jobs online, right? Like on their site, you go to the site and you apply with your resume. So that like what are the other top three, techniques which you would recommend to our audience, which you have found helpful?
So you're saying apart from online websites, apart from websites,
Yeah, apart
okay.
from the company website.
I would say that it's more of your network. I would say like if you know that, for example, if your friend is at Google and she tells you that, oh, Google is hiring, by the way, then I think that's a good network is definitely useful in the job search because you get exposed to so many different companies and then you get insights on whether this company is hiring or that company is hiring. And then that that person in network can also maybe connect you with HR, connect you with the person that has the role that you're looking for. When you're a college student, it's really hard. Everyone says that you should have a big network, but as a student, I felt like it was really hard for me to have such a big network because obviously I'm not friends with like managers at like consulting companies, for example, especially as a student. And so I would definitely say talk to the people around you because they're also definitely interviewing at different companies. So if you ask them like, oh, are you in like which companies are you interviewing for? Which companies have you heard back from? That will just expand your knowledge of which companies are hiring and which companies are not. For me, I did a mixture of that, and so when my friends and I were going through the job search at the same time, and some of us were actually looking for the same roles, and to some people that may sound competitive, but I think for me it was so helpful for me because knowing that they were also going through the same thing I was, and we kind of also helped each other out in terms of if you're if you're looking to enter consulting in terms of case interviews, that was something that was so useful because I actually sat down with them and case prepped with them. So I think make the best use of the resources around you in terms of the people around you. Also, if you're in college, if you're watching this and you're in college, talk to your professors because they will definitely have really great contacts in the industry. Like my professors had honestly the best sorry, I don't want to say the best. Honestly, my professors had really great contacts in the healthcare industry. For example, Cornell is affiliated with um oh my God, sorry, I just completely blanked. For example, Cornell is affiliated with Sloan Kettering and you're Presbyterian. So if you're looking for a research role and you just talk to your professors, they will help you out so much because they're genuinely just like rooting for you and looking for you to get a job as well. So yeah, your professors, the people in your classes, um, and a lot of my job search was also done via LinkedIn, via um, startup websites like Wellfound was a really good one that I used, and then Handshake was also another really good one that I used. And yeah,
Thank you so much. And like I guess like it also gets very overwhelming, right? Like when you're in college and there are so many things you need to do. There are assignments, there are projects, and on top of that, you need to apply for jobs, right? So like how did you handle all those together? Because like even the course pressure would have been very high when you were at Cornell. So like how did you manage all of that, and land so many offers?
it was definitely quite challenging to juggle a lot of that. Um, Especially when you're in your master's, it's only a 1 or 2 year program, and so it can kind of feel very condensed, and you're getting so much knowledge about your classes, and then you have to like go back home and actually apply to jobs and do coffee chats. I would say one really useful skill that I learned in that time is time management. Because if you learn how to prioritize, okay, this number of hours, I'm going to only focus on my job search. And then for the rest of the day, I'm going to do classes, homework assignments, exams, whatever, prepare for exams. um, you will just plan out your day so much better and you will just feel so much more productive. And I think I just learned how to compartmentalize in that 1 year because like exactly like you said, there's so much going on. And I'm sure you can relate to this also as a current student at Columbia, that
Yeah,
I think it is really important to compartmentalize and really prioritize your time in a way where
yeah,
you know like what your end goal is. I would say in my master's, I knew that a 4.0 GPA versus a 3.8 GPA was not gonna really like get me that far. Like I would rather spend that time rather than getting the perfect GPA, actually applying to jobs or talking to people at jobs or interviewing or preparing for interviews. And so it also depends on what your priorities are. But I would say for my master's, my priority was, especially being an international student, was to land a job. And so I really did prioritize that versus getting like a perfect 4.0 GPA.
yeah. And like I found like most of the students like they are quite like most of my peers who are at Columbia, they are like quite focused. So those who want to go for a PhD, they are focusing
Yeah,
more on their courses, and those who want to go for a job, so they have taken courses like which fit their job roles, right? So like I think I would like to add a point like if you want to go for like courses which will help you in your job, I think you should definitely go for that because it will also help you get through the interviews, right? Because you like if you take courses which will help in your job roles.
for sure. And yeah, I would love to know your insights on that also. Like, how are you juggling your time between applying for jobs and doing
Yes,
your
like
master's at
I
Columbia?
yeah, yeah, I'm juggling because I have taken courses which are hardware based courses. So I think those are pretty tough. So even like I when I'm applying for jobs, so like I'm applying for software roles, so it's like pretty different. So a lot of my time is gone preparing for assignments and exams. So yeah, so like I'm still struggling to find a job, but like yeah, so I think the main important tip I would give is like manage your time and focus what your priorities are. If you want to get a job, I think you should focus on that and spend as much time possible on that.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think that's great advice.
Yeah, and I think like researching about the company, and I would also know, want to know about you and how, like when you are like, suppose Ipsos, right? When you are were applying at Ipsos, like what are the three things you focus on while researching about the company?
I think one thing that made me stand out in the interview process was I really highlighted the fact that I've spoken to a lot of people at the company and like I spoke about their journeys and how that inspired me and how I can see myself being part of this culture fit at Ipsos just because of the people that I've spoken to at the company. And I had a really good experience speaking with them. And then secondly, when I was researching the company, I thoroughly looked at the healthcare projects that the company worked on. And I was really fascinated by that because it was like on their website, they have all these clients that they work with. And they were really working on truly cutting edge drugs or devices or biotech devices that they were working on that I was truly fascinated by. So I highlighted that in my interviews as well. And before my interview, I thoroughly looked at the projects that were listed on their website. And in terms of researching the company, uh, they had their values listed out in the website. And so I kind of just made a note of, like, in my head, just made a mental note of the top three values that the company has. And also how those values align with my current or previous work and what I've done in the past or currently to show that those values truly mean a lot to me. Whether that's like honesty, discipline, like ethical guidelines, whatever it is for the company, find a way to, if you're interviewing for that company, you should find a way to align those values with your own and obviously prove how you've done that previously or currently. in terms of experiences or internships.
And I think like most of our audience are, some of our audience, they are planning for their masters abroad, and they are not sure if they want to come to the US. So like since you have got so many offers, like while you like we saw that while applying for masters, you received offers from 10 plus masters program, and like you got into Cornell, and how do you think that a master's degree is worth it in the US? Because many people are unsure if they should come to the US, and because it's very expensive, and
Mhm.
or should they focus on their skills, or so I'm just curious about that.
I definitely want to preface this by saying it doing your master's in the US is definitely expensive. I especially doing your master's in a city like New York, it's definitely very, very expensive. So it obviously depends on what your personal and career goals are. I would say that this is such a multifaceted question. It really depends on the industry that you're trying to go to. I can only speak from my personal experience and from the people that I've seen around me. Um, I was very passionate about the healthcare industry and I really, really wanted to land a job in the US. And I specifically also wanted to be in New York, very like just for personal reasons. And so my incentive to doing my master's in the US was also ultimately to land a job in the US. And I realized how hard it was to land a job in the US if all I had was a undergraduate degree from a London college. Also, in terms of visa restrictions, like you know how if you're an international student and you're an F1 visa and then you have OPT, and then if you do a STEM degree, you have 2 years of STEM OPT. And so that transition just made it a lot easier for me to network with people in the US and then ultimately land a job. Personally, I think my master's at Cornell exposed me so much to the healthcare system in the US, and that's something that I'm truly grateful for because there's no way I would have known like the ins and outs of the healthcare system in the US if I had not done my master's here. I wouldn't have learned that in a job maybe that I'm working for. Just because when I was doing my master's, I was regularly interacting with current doctors or professors that were doctors prior to their current job. And so that just shed so much insight into the healthcare system. But I realize as I'm saying this that this is also so niche, the healthcare system. And so I don't want to make it seem like this is super applicable to like maybe the tech industry or like arts industry, for example. But this was just my experience in the healthcare industry. And if I could go back in time, I would not change anything and I would definitely still do my master's at Cornell.
And another question which is a common question, is like, suppose like in if you are coming through the F1 visa, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have to apply for CPT and then I think OPT. So for like suppose if you don't land a summer internship, uh, like what are the other things you can do at your university in the US? That's a pretty common question, and I guess it's a valid question because the job market is pretty bad right now, and
Yeah.
some people might not get a internship, and maybe they can get a full-time role later. But like, what would you suggest them to do in that uh, summer period?
I think that's a very valid question, and definitely exactly like you said, given the current job market, it is hard to land a job. Especially if you're looking at internships. I would say that if you haven't landed an internship and you're like nearing the summer, nearing the winter, I would say if you have any passion projects that you're working on or that you're interested in working on, for example, if you're a major in CS and you haven't landed a tech internship yet, maybe try like a coding project that you've always been passionate about and something you can just work on the side, and that will definitely add so much to your portfolio. Um, or like if you're in the fashion industry and you've always wanted to, I don't know, try something specific or try something niche to the fashion industry, you can always take that summer to do something, to maybe start something of your own as a side hustle or passion project. And I think maybe that would be something that's quite useful. Like speaking from personal experience, when I was at Cornell, I was doing I was doing my master's at Cornell, and I was very passionate about like I guess my job search was so hard and it was so complex, especially being an international student, that I wish I had more guidance in a lot of different aspects in the job search. And so during my master's, I was quite passionate about like making it easier for other people. And so I started Hide Over Coffee specifically for that reason. And I didn't know that it could grow for I didn't know that it could grow, for example. So I don't know how to like say this, but do you understand what I'm like trying to say? Like I just want to
Yeah,
say like if you're
yeah,
passionate about something and you haven't landed an internship yet,
yeah,
just try working on that passion project or that side hustle
yeah,
because you never know that it might lead where it
yeah,
might lead. And Hired Over Coffee was something that I started as a passion project, and I was
yeah,
fortunate enough that it grew over the last couple of months. I think
yeah,
that's
and
what I was trying to say. I just
yeah,
elongated it.
yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, it's like it's a pretty, good point. I would say like because like there are a lot of people I have seen from my college who did something that they are passionate about, and later they didn't land a job, but they have started companies of their own through those projects.
Exactly.
So like
And
even
that's
if
something
you
that's
can,
so inspiring.
yeah. It's like even like many of the startups, are run like that. It's like because one project can, you can make a company around that. So yeah, and I feel like that's also you don't have to necessarily get a job in the US if you want to do something of your own. Maybe that's another thing which people can go for, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And having a passion project is so inspiring and interesting to me because when you actually land those interviews for full time, you can speak about the project that you've worked on. And for example, in one of my interviews very recently, a couple of weeks ago, I got asked, "What do you enjoy doing outside of work?" And I spoke about this passion project of mine, and they were like truly interested by it and like amused by it. And so, yeah, definitely, if you haven't landed in an internship, if you have any passion projects, I think now's the perfect time to start it. Also, when you're a student, um, you do get a lot of support from colleges. Like recently, I read about a student from I think it was Stanford or Harvard, and he started this glove for people who for blind people. And he actually got a lot of support and funding from the college he was at. I'm not sure whether it was Stanford or Harvard, but I think that's something that's so inspiring.
Like even I'm working on a similar project, and like a lot of my professors, they are really interested in that project. And like a lot like even they have said that you can go for patents, and you can
Mm-hmm.
you can find investors. So like I would suggest like not be too focused. Like you can keep your options open, I would say,
Yeah,
because like a project may go very far, and it might become something big, right? So
yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's like because like I feel this question is more common because like most of the students who are coming from India to study in the US, because like they have a lot of student loans to pay, so that's why it's very essential for them to get land a job in the US. So yeah, so like I think that's where the question is coming from, because uh they want to qualify for the H-1B visa, so that's like a pretty common thing. So what's your take on the like the current job scenario? Like, do you think that people like people who are coming from India, and do they have like, will the job scenario be better in the coming years, or like what's your, because you are working in an industry, so what do you think?
Yeah. I don't want to like misguide or like be misinformed about this topic,
Yeah,
but I think from personal experience, from what I've seen in the healthcare industry and in the consulting industry, it was slowing down in previous years, but I do genuinely believe that it is picking up now. For example, companies that I'm looking at have started rehiring, but other companies, for example, have hiring freezes. So I think overall, in the healthcare industry, I would say it was slow, but I do feel like it's genuinely picking up, and companies are starting to hire again as a whole.
Yeah, I think one more last question which I
Hmm.
have is like so you started a channel, right? So you are helping so many students and so many people. Like what like if someone wants to start a channel and they want to they want to become creators. What's the how because many people are very shy to get into the creating space and create content, but like, what's the first step they can take? So that because so many people have so many good ideas which they want to
Hmm.
bring it out, but they are too scared to take the first step. So, what would you suggest them?
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely, that's so valid, and I can definitely relate to that. I was so scared of putting myself out there. I actually started posting on LinkedIn first, um, and then someone, actually one of my mentors who I met on LinkedIn, was like, if you're targeting a younger audience, our like people like us love watching Instagram Reels or TikToks. Well, not TikToks anymore because it's gonna be banned soon, but Instagram Reels, for
Hopefully not.
example. Uh, Yeah, hopefully not. But yeah, one of my mentors was like, why don't you start posting on Instagram? And initially I was so opposed to that idea because I didn't feel like putting myself out there and I felt like I would be judged quite a bit. Um, and so I genuinely believe that once I did, and once I got over that fear, and once posted my first 5 to 10 videos, it was so essential for me to get over that fear because I realized that that was limiting me from so many opportunities. And if I'd never started this channel, I would have been restricted to so many, like I would have not had those same opportunities. For example, this probably wouldn't have happened. Um, and I met so many cool people while posting content online, and I think when I started posting content online, it was obviously hard when you get like 200 or 300 views and you're scared of other people seeing you. But I think that's complete, like that concern is so valid. But the more you post and the more you put yourself out there, the more opportunities will come to you, the more people will know about you, you'll build a personal brand, and it can help you in so many ways that you won't realize when you're initially posting. So all you need to do is just get over that initial like 5 to 10 posts, and then you'll be completely fine. I think generally also it's just nice to have an optimistic view of things. And so rather than focusing on the negative and feeling like, oh, what if people judge me? Or like, what if people like see me and they don't like what I'm posting? Like, I feel like people are going to say stuff regardless. You might as well, if you have a good idea, if you're passionate about something, you should 100% post that because it's creating a personal brand for you. It will help you so much. You'll get to meet similar like-minded people that maybe you don't have right now. And it'll just open up so many doors for you. And I think just speaking from personal experience, these last few months have helped me so much because they have like I got to speak to you, for example. Like we figured this whole podcast out. I met other creators in the community and we exchanged ideas with each other, like exchanged ideas with each other, potential collaborations. And yeah, just if you like something, definitely just 100% just go for it. And then just like don't look back and don't think about like people judging you because people are going to say stuff regardless. You might as well just do whatever you want.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And I think like thank you for creating this channel. I think it's helping so many people around the world,
I'm
and
glad.
yeah, and I think your channel is very important because I feel like so many people are in dire need of advice of how to navigate their career paths, right? And they are just confused of how to start, and it can be very overwhelming. Because we are
For sure.
because you're coming from like because if you're coming from a different country, navigating jobs in the US is very different. Like in India, you have placements and companies come to you and you have like a placement season. but here it's like completely different. And I think I would
Mhm.
recommend everyone, to follow Hired Over Coffee. I think that gives,
Thank you.
that gives you an edge over others, I feel. Yeah, and yeah, I think I'll be attaching the link in the description below. And yeah, I guess you can check it out. And thank you so much, Harshvi, I think I've taken a lot of your time, but thank you so much for coming to our podcast.
Of
And any last advice for our viewers?
Um, yeah, firstly, thank you so much for those kind words. They mean a lot. Thank you so much for that. It was great being on this podcast. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be on this podcast and reach so many people. I really appreciate that. My last advice is, mm, if you're looking for a job and you're getting rejections, just make sure that you're not thinking of it as a numbers game, and you're not just like applying to a job and then hoping for the best and not doing anything else. Really make sure that you're networking, you're coffee chatting, you're asking for referrals. Um, your resume is tailored to the job application, your cover letter is tailored to the job application. Ask someone else to maybe read your resume to get another set of eyes on it. Make sure that there are no spelling mistakes. That if you're applying for like consulting or finance roles, make sure that it's one page. Um, and the formatting looks good. So yeah, definitely get a second pair of eyes on all of that. And then if you are doing all of that, then just don't worry, something will definitely work out. You're doing the right thing. And I have dealt with so many rejections in terms of job search, in terms of like so many like undergraduate college applications also. It's completely normal. Everyone goes through it, and all you need is just one yes to actually get the job that you want. And so just yeah, just keep applying, and I'm sure something will work out.
Thank you so much, Harshvi. I think we'll end the podcast here. Thank you so much for your time, and I
Thank
think
you.
hoping for a new episode soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Thank you so much.